Welcome to our webinar series for professionals.
So welcome everybody to this webinar where the focus is treating and preventing or balancing nervous system or neuro conditions, mainly like autism. And Dr. Irina Shuro have kindly offered to share a lot of her knowledge and experience throughout the years in regards to working with children with autism and also parents, of course, to those children. So some years ago, I was working a lot with autistic children and went to a lot of the American conferences that were there. And yeah, so this is a topic that is very close to my heart for sure, and especially now with the new autism rates that's come in the US, where we are down to 1 in 36 children with autism. So this is highly relevant to work with. I think when I started working on this topic, it was 1 in 48 or something, but that's of course some years ago. But unfortunately, despite all the work that a lot of practitioners and doctors and researchers are doing, the numbers have gone the wrong way. So we will send out invites in regards to May webinars as well, where we have some coming up. So stay tuned on your email. And we will record, and it is already recording, I'm just double checking, and share the recording and the slides as well with you all as soon as possible. We have a big group in Dubai right now, so our admin team are excused right now, but sometime hopefully next week or the week before, we will be able to share the recording and the slides with you as soon as possible when they're back. So Dr. Irina, I'm gonna let you take over the stage and do your presentation. You can all put questions in the chat. I'll take note of them. And then when Dr. Irina Shuro has done her presentation, we'll do Q&A at the end where I take out some of the questions that you have asked. So I will mute myself, but I will be here to help you in case of any issue.
Yeah. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much to Nordic Labs for opportunity to share my experience and also view on autism as a whole, because like Catherine said, it's very big and hot topic right now. The statistics really demonstrate that. We're living at the time of the autism pandemic, and we really try to understand why we can't change that sort of pandemic dynamic. And hopefully I can sort of empower you today to work with the autism individuals a little bit closely, because we can help them a lot. April is Autism Awareness Month, and you probably come across very often the slogan at the background, like accept, understand, love, and of course it's very true. But I think we need to be more proactive, and that's why the problem is we need to add a little bit more specific action points to this slogan, like find and address root causes, prevent, help to thrive, identify functional profile, and improve biochemical imbalance in those children and individuals. And this is what I'm going to focus today, especially on that. So what is autism in general? So in order to help, we need to understand what's going on in this area. So I'll just very quickly summarize the findings. There is lots of stigma about autism. There is lots of stereotypes, but I'm going to be bold, and I can say, yes, we can treat autism if it's some type of autism, for sure. So the thing is, when we identify the autism, there is a diagnostic based on behavior symptoms. And all these symptoms on your right hand, we can see they based on how the children behave, how they respond to environment, social environment, and things like that. But the thing is, it's all come not just from the brain, it's not come just in dictating behavior. It's it's based on neurological symptoms and functions, which are highly supported by what's going on in the body. And at least four main type of symptoms we can identify. It's what's going on in the digestion system, what's going on in the immune system, what's going on and the level of detoxification and metabolic functions. So all these parameters, very, very important, and they feeding brain balance and connection both ways and causing the symptoms which we normally monitor in children. We definitely know that autism is not simply genetic disorder like we used to think about 10, 15 years ago. It's just simply not. And the more genes we discover, the more we understand it's getting broader and broader and broader. And we understand that more environmental factors and lifestyle play a big role in autism outcome and symptoms. We definitely understand that epigenetic condition autism is more epigenetic rather than genetic condition. And again, with all the functional testing, we are all experts so we understand how it works. I'm not going to focus on that, but we definitely can influence that expression of some genes and silence some genes and see how that can help to overcome imbalances in autistic children. Now, from the big stages from last year, I've been attending conference in Abu Dhabi. We can really say openly there is a real autism, but there is a not real autism. Real autism, this is where exactly the brain function is impacted and their neurology is taking big place, and there is a brain is wired slightly differently. And even then, we can do a lot. I'm working with the different professionals and we improve that situation. But nevertheless, lots of things going on, what I call pseudo-autism. And there is a two type, which are to some degree similar. It's a acquired or regressive autism. This is when children born normally and they develop normally at the beginning, but between the age of 2 or 3 years, or even from 18 months up to 3 years, something happening in their body. So they start accumulate the toxicity and the level of kind of resilience, if you want, start to get less and less, and overflow is happening. So they start to regress in development, they closing down, they stuck in a safety mode, they protecting themselves. So they've got enough and they kind of closing down. And there is a featured autism. This is where the children got autistic profile, but it comes from metabolic problems, from some internal blocks inside of their body, rather than how the brain is functioning. So, and here, in these two categories, this is where functional professionals can do a lot, because this is about exactly what we do and support other people. So this is why the functional testing can come very handy, and we understand and can provide support for these children. But if we want, we can help everyone as well, because of course there is no clear cut, but there is a tendency to help one or another sort of a more type of autism, if you want. These statistics is also very empowering what we can do by approaching holistic protocol. Up to 64% of children with ASD are medicated without need. I think this is a huge statistic. Just can't imagine how many kids we can help and the medication's not necessary, and if anything, it's actually harmful. So, and we can do a lot by providing the good solution, finding what is not quite functioning optimally in their body. I also can say that autism is a metabolic disorder, because there is so many metabolic conditions, metabolic issues, disorders also involved in their sort of a final symptomatic profile. So then we can easily look into it and help from metabolic point of view. Just at this little diagram, there is lots of things you can identify what you're dealing at every day, probably life, helping other people with the different symptoms and a different diagnosis. So one of the biggest connection of autism, and we heard that the last seminar we did 2 weeks ago, between gut impairment and autism and other neurological conditions, because the gut health is of the mother and the baby at early stages, playing huge role how the whole child's development is going and how child's functional systems are established. And immune system, digestive system, and central nervous system, they make like a magic triangle, I call, because they are connecting from the same set of cells at early stage. So functionality very similar to some degree. And there is so much research. I'm of course not going into it, but if you want, you can look yourself. There is lots of very empowering studies connecting how the gut is working and autism spectrum. We even understand now the mechanism how it's happening. And in this particular paper, so simple, of course it's not as simple, but it's quite a clear the pathway how it can impact. So in the gut we've got good bacteria and bad bacteria, of course, which imbalance of those produce lots of toxicity, which causing leaky gut and inflammation inside, and neuroinflammation is a part of that, which is impacting the brain development and brain function and causing symptoms of autism to some degree. So there is a recent paper which even suggests that probably, and again, that's something maybe Nordic clubs can look into it in the future, there is going to be tests based on microflora, how the quick functional test for autism, because so far it's a very long process based on behavior symptoms, and we need more express functional test for autistic profile. So that could be very handy. Nevertheless, we know a lot about autism now, but in many countries there is a standard way to deal with the autism. And this is why I just imagine the child inside of the egg. And there is lots of effort coming from external factors. It's creating environment. This is what come back to the first slogan, the love, support, acceptance, which absolutely needed. But this is just like external forces. Just imagine this is the egg. So we put lots of positive, but still stress on this fragile shell of the egg, right? And sometimes it can just break this egg. It could be too much because the forces also need to be at least equal. So if you remember how the chick, and again, it's a kind of Easter topic relevant. So the chick coming out of the egg, the force coming from inside, not from outside. When we force it from outside, we break the life. The life coming from inside, and that's what is very important. So we really need to consider that child's resilience. Is he able, to what degree he is able to meet these external forces, even the positive, like a love of parents, great school, educational system, and then, you know, many different things, but it still could be too much for these children. So how we can understand which internal factors we can improve in order to improve the child's resilience, in order to adequately sort of respond to all these positive external factors to help this child to thrive. And this is where, again, as a functional professionals, we can do a lot, because internal factors, this is what we all love and work every day, like level of nutrients, immunity, inflammation, detoxification, DNA repair, methylation, mitochondria, microbiome, and etc. So this is where we can do a lot. So how I'm functioning. So I'm looking at personal functional profile of each child, because I believe this is what is helping to understand what the best support we can put in place. And I'm using quite a number of functional tests provided by Nordic labs. And I mean, we have a lot of good tests. In red, I just indicated the test I'm using the most. It doesn't mean, you know, we don't need to use other tests. It's just, you know, everybody have got their kind of, if you want, favorite, and you see how it matching to your style of work and diagnosis as well. So I'm using a lot GI map test, because I think it's quite sensitive, comprehensive. It's easy to collect samples. Now I'm going definitely try new test, which we've been presented last time, baby child gut health. I think it's very needed test, especially for younger children. I'm using a lot food intolerance test, because that's, again, helps to understand the level of inflammation inside of the body. I'm using DNA functional test. Unfortunately, there is no optimal panel for neurodivergent people. And we talked with Helen about it on the last conference at Copenhagen. Maybe we can come up with a better list. So I'm using health and mind, but health most, right? Metabolic function, important test. I'm using organic acid test, but more and more start to use metabolomics plus, and also comprehensive neurotransmitter profile, especially for young adults. That could be a good test to recommend. Heavy metals, I'm using hair more than urine, because I found for younger children it's less, how say, it's easier test to do, and if you interpret it in the right way, it correlates with urine provocative test quite well. And of course, different toxicity we need to measure from time to time to identify what exactly else we need to do and address in order to detox the body. Mold, glyphosates, and environmental toxins I'm using from time to time as well. Excuse me. So just a general important points before we're going to specific case studies. What I suggest we remember when we're talking with the children with autism, there is always essential foundation piece, right? So we also need to start from general and move to specific. I explain parents, like, for example, you come to the swimming pool or a shopping mall and there is lots of background noise behind. So if you start with the specific things to address right now, it wouldn't be that effective. Because in this background noise, you can't hear the voice of your child who is probably shouting you mommy, mommy from, I don't know, second floor of this shopping mall and you standing on the ground floor, right? So we need to bring this noise down, and then the voice of your child would be much more profound. So if we clear that background mess and then do functional test, they will bring us much more specific information. That's why when I start to work, I do my general assessment, I identify very quickly which potential areas needs to be sort of clarified, if you want, the background noise need to be slowed down, and then we do the functional test. Unless the parents say, no, I need to do it right now, especially fathers, they sometimes need to be like convinced to do anything. They need to see, right? They need to see the graphs, they need to see statistics, they need to see some kind of, demonstration of imbalances, because they don't identify, otherwise they don't trust their child might have some, bad bacteria overgrowth or candida or some toxicity, and that impacting autistic profile of the child. So moms, they much more in tune with the child, and we need to consider what is the family situation, who you're working with, because obviously with helping to children, we're working through the parents who also got their own health issues sometimes, and they can be also ADHD or neurodivergent, and they overwhelmed and they tired and fatigue. So considering all that, you always finding the way to demonstrate what can be done, but in the way they can understand you. So there is no standard protocol. It's very much intuitively, tuning into their personal situation and trying to connect dots for them. So once you connect the dots, why the child is doing what he is doing, and showing that general understanding of the situation, they much more open to discuss the action plan. So, and we also, when we're working with these children, we need to remember there is no standard way to supplement them, because even you would like this child to take the supplements, they simply can't do it sometimes because there is lots of sensitivities going on, the texture sensitivity, they might not swallow capsules, they don't like this taste and things like that. So we going very very creative about supplementation and hiding in a different way, hiding in the food, hiding in the drink, giving through the syringe, injecting that into the food they like, if it's a solid and crispy, and things like that. If we can't take it, giving through the sort of a normal way, even through the skin, it's a good starting point. So again, there is many different ways, but understanding where the roots of autism is very important, because again, when you explain that to parents, they becoming, they understand much more, and they willing to try different things because they understand why we're doing that protocol. We need to keep it simple, but active as well. And I have to admit, I mean, the compliance is always a problem with our clients, but when it comes to families with autistic children, it's a big problem. And that's why, coaching becoming is very important part of working with those families. They need reassurance, they need reminders, they need motivation to do it. And if it doesn't work that way, try this way, or try this way, or try this way. So you always give them options to try to achieve something before they start to see positive results. Sometimes it's quite difficult to keep motivating them, but it's absolutely necessary. Right. So let's dive in particular case studies, and because I think it's all general, it's all quite nice, but how we're actually dealing in it in real life. So this real case, boy 5 years old with diagnosed autism. But when I started to talk to mothers, so we definitely identified some kind of possible roots or some possible reasons for this condition. The mother's health was quite out of, how say, balance. That was a child number 3, and mother wasn't well, and the difference between children was very small. She was exhausted and things like that. The child was premature. He was born with the jaundice. For me, jaundice is always the red flag. I always see if there is a jaundice as a baby, it means the liver is going to be weak place, always. So it means we need to look what's going on and detoxification pathway and support liver one or another way. The child had operation. I think it was something facial, some kind of problem was there, but he was very young, so like a 2-3 days old. So it means again intervention, antibiotics, medications at early stage. The connection between mom and the baby wasn't quite there, so it wasn't very peaceful early stage of life of child. So antibiotics, he had a very severe constipation. He was following the normal sort of vaccination plan, and about 2 years old, regress happened. Do you remember we were talking about this sort of a regressive autism, which is about 30% of each cases? That was one of them. So child kind of, in spite of many different things, he developed fine until at some point he just lost his speech, lost eye contact, and became very protective and didn't communicate with the people as before. So the mom was concerned about speech delay, anxiety, hyperactivity, low immunity of this child. And very quickly, when you look at the face of this child, will look the video, the reports, and the questionnaire mom completed, you can see digestive system out of place, immune system is out of place, liver is not in a balance, internal stress is very high. This is usual case in these children. Again, they're living in a safety mode, that protective mode. They're very, very stressed and tense inside. So it's an imbalance between sympathetic and parasympathetic central nervous system. And of course, there is a behavior and some reflexes not in places, and typical kind of autistic behavior. And the diagnosis was made based on that. So the challenge in this particular family was that, I mean, it's actually a good thing, but also the challenge from providing very proactive protocol, because mom didn't like supplements. So she was really a big advocate of food, which is great for us, is great, but to overcome that malnourishment and gut issues, sometimes we need some supplements, at least for certain period of time. And she was very reluctant to implement any supplements, but I had to show you why and for how long exactly the child needs to take some supplements. The protocol is always, in my case, based on 2 stages. It's general support, because as I explained before, it's important. And I use my DNA formula: detox, nourish, and attitude. And of course, all that nourishing the DNA is a genetic material. So because we need to detox everything around us and inside us, we need to nourish everything, and we need to have a right attitude. Especially the parents needs to have that right attitude towards what they're doing and why they're doing, and believing in their child's potential. I always start with the general supplements, good multi-nutrients formula, cod liver oil, multi-strain probiotic. In his case, it was Biochemical, because Biochemical has a very small capsules. It's very easy to swallow for children who start to learn how to swallow capsules. And we decided she's going to introduce all that, plus, of course, by detox nourish attitude, there is dietary changes, there is a general detoxification of environment, and cleaning the house from toxins and things like that. We decided to do some functional tests, GIMAP, DNA, health and hair test. So when we've done this test, I was actually pleasantly surprised. So the symptoms the child showed and the test results showed that, the situation on a functional level is not too bad, actually. So if you can see from DNA test, you can see only inflammation is the high priority. So he's very highly inflammable child. It means he probably got neuroinflammation. And if the children got neuroinflammation, they definitely don't develop well. This is like a big stepping stone in their development. Even they work with other professionals, they come back to me, they say, we need to resolve neuroinflammation, and then we can move forward. If they're working on with reflexes, on a primitive reflexes, for example, that could be a limiting factor for them to respond to other therapies. So that's why it's very important for children. And mutilation and oxidative stress were a moderate priority. And very often, mutilation, detoxification, inflammation, oxidative stress, this is the 4 big areas in children on a spectrum impacted. What is great to see here, the detoxification is not impacted from genetic point of view, and it means the child, once we start to provide better environment, better food and supplements, he can start to function much better. Very often I see, actually, to be honest, I think it's in 100% of the kids, maybe 99.9, the pathometabolism is impacted. It could be highly impacted, could be moderately impacted, but very, very often it is impacted. And again, without unsaturated fatty acids, the development of central nervous system and the brain is just impossible. The function of the cells opening up the lipid membrane and closing down, bringing the nutrients inside and kicking out the toxins is impossible. So this, I'm sorry. This area is very, very important. And also, the child was African origin, so lactose intolerance is high. Again, that's predictable. And he had some gluten intolerance on genetic level. But again, you always explain parents, so this is genetic predisposition, but also what actually happening in real life on a metabolic level, it's also very, very important to understand. And vitamins, metabolism is very important. In this case, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin B12 is not doing well. And I think this is impacting the malnourishment of the child. And all these vitamins, like vitamin A is important for immune system, it's a master vitamin. Vitamin D is important for many different things, immunity, development, vitamin B12, methylation. Without those vitamins, the child just can't develop normally. When we look at the gut, he wasn't too bad at all, to my surprise. Yes, the child has a H. pylori, little bit, but here, look, the keystone bacteria was very, very, lots of things in the green zone, which is great, to my surprise. And these 2 species, which actually markers of maturation of microflora. Again, go back to the previous webinar, which was brilliantly explained to us. how that all these groups of bacteria changing where the child is growing during first 3 years. They've been fine. So it means, digestive system from good bacteria point of view, doing okay-ish. There is some overgrowth of opportunistic bacteria, and that's again might explain level of inflammation inside and low immunity, because when we see all these guys, the immune system normally is compromised. But the rest is fine. There is some indication of parasites, but I have to say that when I see some parasites here or viruses or even yeast, I prefer to work on just optimizing microflora from bacterial point of view first, and then add more specific points if we need to address candida or some parasites. I'm never going to anti-worm, anti-parasitic, anti-candida protocol straight away, because whatever you do, the gut environment should be addressed first. Because it's more holistic. We're preparing that environment, we're preparing terrain for then the other products to work better. And if you've got enough good guys and the bad guys under control, so the parasites will be taking under control automatically. So if we do this test again in a few months, the picture would be completely different. And then we can do more specific, like anti-candida, for example, treatment. The elastase was low. The secretory IgI was a little bit low. So, this correlates with the low immunity. Calprotectin was a little bit high. That correlates with high inflammation. And the zonulin was on the borderline. So that was really helped me to push the moms to change lots of on a dietary line for the general protocol, and she completely changed the way they cooked. And the hair test, I want to point out that I like hair test because, as I said, for children is non-invasive, but I don't read what the test provide, the explanation. I follow this guidance. I don't know, maybe lots of people do as well, but I think it's very important to follow the Andrew Cutler algorithm, how to interpret the test, because in this case, I see the similarity, because lots of parents come with me with lots of test results already, but they don't know what to do with it. So I'm summarizing it, and I can see if they did provocative urine test, and if I use that way to interpret a hair test, it correlates, but it's much easier to perform. It's much cheaper as well, and the child doesn't need to drink DMSO or another nasty things to do that provocative urine test. So the hair test give us three things. We see if there is mineral transport normal or not, because if the mercury in the body is high and it's already sit in the tissues, it can impair the transportation of minerals, and that's, the second part could be quite tricky to interpret it, because then the results may be not exactly how it's been shown, but we can explain because we work on this area, and once the mercury level is lowering, this would be much more accurate. So this is the one. And then the level of minerals, because the blood test, if you check the blood test, very rarely they check all the minerals. You need to go to special clinics, to special countries for the blood, comprehensive blood mineral test. And the blood is only one level of understanding what's going on in the body anyway. So it's a complementary. So the mineral profile is important if it's truly reflecting what's going on in the body, which may be not the case. That's why it is important to understand if the mineral transport is fine or it's deranged. But I think there is another webinar is coming which will explain more about this test, so I'm looking forward to it. So the protocol based on the test we did for this particular child was addressing inflammation. And again, for this particular case, I suggested lots of dietary changes mostly, and the only, when it's necessary, the supplements. So that's why we really, cod liver oil for me is a good supplement, because I explain it's like alternative to eating fish. Of course, it should be screened for heavy metals. It should be good quality, but it's much, in terms of omega-3 profile, it's much closer to natural sort of a ratio. It's not just the omega-3, isolated omega-3, which we also do from time to time, but I call it like a boost for omega-3, where the cod liver oil children can easily take every day without any limitations. So because it's a food-based product, and it's naturally contain fat-soluble vitamins, which our children missing enormously. So turmeric, ginger, garlic, all this anti-inflammatory, sugar, of course, we need to address lots of good quality plant oils. We need to explain that oils from oils different. Well, anything comes in a plastic bottle, anything, hydrogenated oils, it's just a poison. So the parents need to understand how to shop properly and what kind of products they give to their children. So that's important. We are addressing mutilation in his particular case because only one variation was impacted, MTHFR1. So we need to increase choline intake. So the child start to eat more eggs, meat, organ meat, which is always tricky. This particular family was able to introduce it, but also I suggest often organ meat seasoning. You can find, as again, it's based on a real food, but you can add as a seasoning when you're cooking so that we receive good nutrients that way. Nutritional yeast is a source of B12, which is again is a seasoning, but very easy to integrate when you're cooking, and some special B12 and magnesium as a cofactor for methylation, supplements, but it's a minimum supplements. We looked at digestion, how to support, and I suggested some enzymes because, we can invest so much money and time in cooking and preparation and dealing with the picky eating in these children. But if there is not enough enzymes, so they just can't utilize all this great food we put on them. So again, it's a waste and it's a shame. So enzymes is important. This child also was able to drink apple cider vinegar water, which helps with the H. pylori and also cascading down, stimulating the whole digestive enzyme system, which is great. And I always kind of suggest start with easy food if possible, more nourishing food, kind of GAPS. I'm GAPS practitioner, by the way, so my kind of GAPS diet background is always with me, and where I can advise like a green GAPS, if possible, that helps with the digestion a lot. We've been addressing dysbiosis as well because the streptococcus present, so the oral biotics was suggested. Continuing with the Biochemical, because I think this child particular was doing reasonably well in terms of good microbes. And of course, the homemade fermented food, which I'm again teaching how to do, and depends on a parent's background. I suggest to start with the kraut juice because the kraut cabbage itself very difficult to digest for many and they don't like it, but kraut juice is easy to hide and incorporate in the food, and the dairy-based kefir, so which I found is very fantastic. And if the child takes smoothie, it's very easy to use. But this food gives us prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic. This is what is the important. All the probiotic story is about getting postbiotic, and that's what we provide with the real food, fermented food, homemade. H. pylori, I suggest that if it's possible to introduce one or another or both and just to see, but I think the child was able to take the grapefruit seed extract. Nutritional imbalance, which was evident from hair and DNA test, we addressed with the multi-formula, multivitamins and multi-minerals from Brainchild Nutritionals. Again, I like this company because they do specific supplements for ADHD and for autistic individuals, and they've got different gradation like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Understanding depends on the severity of autistic profile. The child might need more some nutrients and less another, so it's very well balanced from that perspective. And they've got liquid and capsule form as well, depends what child can take. And again, the selenium and zinc was advised based on the test results and support immunity. In terms of heavy metals, it's definitely not the priority in the protocol because we need to prepare the body for proper detoxification and nourish it first, right? So we need to improve the gut, we need to improve the microflora, make sure that inflammation is under control, and only then looking into more specific detoxification support. So that's why it was suggested to give the just general liver support. And I like this product, Herbathion, also by Brainchild Nutritionals, because it's all herbal based and it comes in a liquid. You just add as a tonic to drink, so it's very easy for kids to take. And again, looking how much toxins we can exclude from the home, from environment around, because it's huge. We're living in a toxic soup, and these children very, very sensitive to that. So the feedback in 6 months, I was very pleasantly surprised. That's why I want to share with you. So the child did really, really well. So his digestion improved, his sleep pattern improved, immunity got better. Considering 3 children in a family, he wasn't really ill as much, and his seasonal allergies were under control. But what is important, it's not just all these obvious functions we are addressing were improved, but sensory issues were improved, anxiety has reduced, he's become more focused and organized, his verbal communication improved, and cognitive and comprehensive ability improved, which mother was over the moon. And she said, you know what, I just want to have a pause here. I want to see how he's now developing from this new base, which we gave to him. So now we're waiting for another 6 months to see what's going on, and then we can sort of reassess the situation, and I see if they want to move to the next level, because we still got some heavy metals to address, but at the moment they want to have a break, which I really appreciate. But what we can learn from here. So some children have a great reaction to simple changes like diet, general supplementation, less stress at home, coordinated support. So we really shouldn't be afraid, because every time, every child can benefit from our support. When parents see positive changes, they either get more motivated and get more sort of proactive, or they want, to have a break, and this is their decision, but we've done our job one or another way. But they know where to find you if they've got some questions or they won't come back to another stage of the protocol. Often profound changes, especially in more severe cases, require different approaches, and therefore referrals to other specialists can be very important. So that's why to grow the network of different professionals working with the children with autism, I think very, very important. I've got another case study, but I don't think we've got more time, Catherine. What do you think? Shall I continue?
I think you should continue. I think it's
Okay.
so
I
important.
will do it a little bit quicker because that, we can use the first case study as a template. So this case was 15 years old child. And of course, it's, much more severe autistic because in his 15 years old, he couldn't speak well. He had lots of health issues. He was physically underdeveloped. And when I looked at him, I could see there is lots of things again playing the role. Every time if the child is premature, it means the normal developmental delay contributing to autistic profile. And that's also, is it real autism or is something still been missing? Very often these children who born with the premature or with the C-section delivery, they are lacking integration of primitive reflexes, which causing lots of again, mimicking symptoms to the autistic symptomatic profile. The latching, the child didn't latch properly. It means he will probably have an oral malfunction, and that definitely needs to be assessed, and that's contributing to speech delay very often. Having professional who dealing with the oral malfunction in your network could be a good idea if you work with such kids. He had a lots of infection, antibiotics, constipation, similar to that. So it means the gut would be, need to be controlled, and there is some toxins and coming from the gut, which, impacting his development overall. When I looked at him again, it was very obvious there is lots of different areas needs to be addressed. But the challenge was here. It was an Indian family, vegan, very, very vegan background. And of course, the age of the child, he was already teenager. So the younger children, we've got much more flexibilities. It's very difficult to introduce changes for teenager. And of course, the hormonal imbalance, which not balance, but very often imbalance in these children doesn't really help as well. So what we did, we looked some tests as well, and you can see the methylation was very highly impacted, but detoxification, to my surprise, was low area of the priority. Inflammation and oxidative stress moderate. Pathometabolism again there, and there all the vitamins is there. And interesting that vitamin D was, like you can see the all three blockages we look at, it's there. So he probably was lacking vitamin D a lot, not just on the level of conversion, but also on the level of bringing to the cells, because the binding protein, vitamin D binding protein is also being impacted. Here, the gut wasn't too bad, actually. H. pylori was detected, but was low, the reference. Again, the keystone, what I want to say, sometimes we think, oh, gut, it should be really badly impacted. In some cases, yes, but in many cases, it actually can be all right. But the level of other bad bacteria, and metabolic functioning as well level is very important to consider. So yeah, there is a bad bacteria, there is candida, but not too bad. There is again elastase a little bit on the low side, and zonulin on a borderline, not too bad at all. But when we look at the organic acid test, again, this is the candida. It's picking up some dysbiosis, which we already knew, but there is a high oxalate. There is a lots of mitochondria markers which energy producing on a cellular level been impacting. And I truly believe it dependent on the diet as well, because child was very malnourished. He was small, he's physically not very well developed, he had a curved back, he's lack of coordination and gross motor skills and things like that. So the neurotransmitters, of course, being impacted, so the dopamine and serotonin level not optimal. So again, the probably something to do with the pathometabolism on DNA on genetic level, but there is some kind of ketone and fatty acid oxidation is something going on. And I always look not just these markers, but also we need to pay attention to some markers like that, the functional markers. So they're not highlighted by the lab, but we can see, okay, they're out of orange bar, so that's also could be contributing factor to the final symptomatic profile. The vitamins being low, I want to point out, because I believe the vitamin C, when it's when it's high, it means low, right, in organic acid. So when it's low, it means I don't think we totally can trust it, because the half-life of vitamin C is very short, and I think by the time we collect urine and analyze it, it's probably not there anyway. So that's why this one needs to be checked otherwise. And there is something going on his sort of detoxification level as well. So what did we do? We focused on methylation, and this child, you see the difference. This child would need much more supplementation support, because his dietary restrictions. And the family tried to integrate my advice, and they start to give him eggs, right? And some good quality hard cheese and dairy kefir. Mom start to do it home, but still there is so much been missing, and we need to introduce and phospholipid complex additionally, and lots of antioxidants, and ultimate omega periodically, which is giving the boosting, because the child never eat fish, so he would need extra omega-3s and things like that. What else? On the digestive system, again, high concentration probiotics were advised. And with the probiotics, sometimes we need to go not what they suggest on the bottle, but because this is what I say, it's a kind of preventive dosing. We need to go to much higher if the child can tolerate, and stay at least for 6 months, and then you can go to therapeutic dose rather than treatment dose. That's something could be important. The fermented food is always. We also I suggested anti-candida product, because it was very difficult to eliminate sugar, because the child was eating lots of fruits. So we need to extra supplements to deal with the candida. Again, multi-formula, and then specific vitamins based on the test results. And because, again, the diet restriction in these children, we're looking at amino acids and nucleotides, especially because they don't have enough uh, important protein blocks, which absolutely essential for neurotransmitters, hormones, and many other things. Mitochondrial support was very important for this child. And again, very interesting because creatine and carnitine, these children don't get with the animal products. They need it, but the reaction can be very strong. And that's why it's very important to start very, very slowly, like with the homeopathic dosing. So, because this nutrient's been missing for whole 15 years of existing this child, right? And then another 9 months in utero. So he needs that, but body doesn't know what to do with this molecule. It could be shock. That's why we need to start very, very slow. Otherwise, parents can see some kind of regress and they stop because they're afraid to move forward. And they think, oh, I tried it, but it never worked. No, it works, but it means we did something wrong. Concentration, formulation, time during the day when you give the supplements could be important and things like that. So this child improved a lot, and in 15, at 15 years old, I was surprised to see. So his digestion normalized. Oops, sorry. Immunity got much better. Anxiety reduced, which was, it's happening, why it's jumping. Anxiety was a very, very big problem. And the self-awareness got much, much better. And his reading improved a lot. So his academic performance improved as a result. So it was nice. But of course, this child needs much longer work. Sorry. So here, takeaway points. Teenagers have some hormonal imbalance, and that complicates the cases. So they got much more accumulated toxins and lack of nutrients, right? So that's why it's also much more complicated. When they start improving anxiety, and they becoming much more self-aware and aware of what's going on around, another level of anxiety can kick in because they start to understand much more. And from sort of a happy, bubbly child, maybe, who is anxious in a specific situation, they becoming sort of more normal, anxious teenagers. And that's, again, the parents needs to be explained and support because it's a different type of anxiety. It's just because they understand much more. And at this age, of course, children, if they can, not in this particular case we discussed, but in many different cases, especially with the high-functioning teenagers, they need to be involved in the process. Otherwise, if they don't understand why we change the way they're eating, the way they're acting, the way they do some exercises, why they need to take some supplements, why they should stay away from some cakes and all this kind of rubbish food, which is available everywhere. It's very difficult to achieve long-lasting results. So that's why they need to be integrated. They need to be involved in the process. I'm showing some small videos for these children so they understand how the microbiome is working and etc. Giving some positive association, what they want to achieve. So this food supporting that, something you would like to be in the future. So overall points. So children at any age, at any condition, at any severity of autism can help. Some children can respond faster, some little bit slow, but they always very responsive. Functional tests are very important, but many symptoms are evident already without even for this general level, but depends on the situation and the family. You can use this functional testing in your favor and suggest them earlier or later, depends on the situation. And you can do it at the beginning and then repeat, depends on the financial situation as well. Even one course of antibiotics can shift the microbiome a lot. And I've got just here, one course of antibiotic for 1 week changed situation a lot. So this is before we worked on a child and the microbiome was pretty much good. Then one course of antibiotics and you can see how much changes. And the same here. So here we just had one streptococcus species here, and then after antibiotics, everything is shifted. So that's why it's important to educate parents about antibiotics. What is interesting, some nutrients can be built up in the blood and the parents come with the panic, oh, vitamin D is very high in the blood test. Oh, vitamin B12 can be very high in the blood, and they afraid and they stop. What is happening? Because the blood is just the one system in the body, right? And we don't know what's actually going on in the cell. So when they see high vitamin D in the blood, it doesn't mean it's high in the cells. So what I suggest, maybe just to give them a pause, we stop for a couple of weeks, and then we reintroduce a different formulation. And this is where the liposomal version of the products can be very useful, because with the liposomal, it's going directly more to the cells rather than start to build in the blood. Yeah, in some cases, other therapies can be important to consider, because some children, I have children who just can't take any supplements. We try tiny bit, like 1 molecule, and they got hyperactivity reaction to it. So it means this child so disbalanced physically and energetically inside. So they really need some kind of physical alignment. They need to go to child's chiropractor to look at. And when they aligned a little bit, so their sensitivity going down, then we can start introduce supplements. But if you see such cases, it doesn't mean you have to give up. It means you might suggest something, and then these parents can come back to you to follow your advised protocol. So anyway, every child is unique, no standard pattern of functional profile, but we can understand, we can help, and we can troubleshoot together and support every case. So I think I skipped that. This is just list of the main, you will see the slides. This is how I work. This is my way of working. You again look at it. This is one of my cases which inspiring me. This is my friend with her 20 years old autistic child. Just give you background. This lady, young lady, 4 years and a half, sucking thumb, rocking in a chair, no eye contact, no single word, saliva over the place, no control, horrible apraxia. She was going through the walls without really recognizing anything around. It was absolutely a disaster. Now she's 20 years old. Actually, this year they celebrate 21. This is last year they went to Paris. She speaks 2 languages, understands 3 languages. She is very independent. She's still neurodivergent. I can see she's still neurodivergent. She is highly creative. She's got her way of dealing with the things, but she is very independent and she's living her own life. That's what we're aiming, to support every individual to the level, functional level, they can be independent and be happy as they can. So that is me. If you want any questions and you want to reach one or another way, discuss any particular cases or give me some feedback, constructive criticism, I'm here for you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Irina. I love to feel you and experience your passion on this topic, and it's kind of like I'm nearly like shaking inside, because it's how I've been working with kids as well throughout the years. And when you have seen one of those kids being like severely with autistic symptoms, and then suddenly seeing them come out of their shell and becoming like more normal, you can say, in their behavior, getting friends and like finding interests and seeing them develop, then I normally say, if I've helped one child throughout my career, then it's been for sure worth it. And so thank you for sharing that. And obviously there's lots of questions. Some of you have answered each other. I've tried to answer a little bit on the side. I think you can just leave, of course, if you don't have time, but I think we should have some
I'm fine. I'm
here
free
at the end, if possible. And we're sharing the recording, so if you have to run off and feed some kids or what have you, get home before time, then watch the recording later. But a good question came up in regards to introducing healthy foods. Because very often these children are very, very pickish eaters and only want to eat white food, basically. And then how do you start introducing healthy foods to them? Do you have just a few comments to that?
Yeah, I got the whole training on the picky eating. So because the picky eating is quite complex, and we really need to understand where it's come from, and help parents to identify. Sometimes just introducing extra zinc helps to realize that child didn't feel too much. And I keep the liquid zinc here. What I suggest parents do, and you can see it on my Instagram, I've got like a short video. You can put some zinc across the tongue of the child, so across the whole different receptors, and see the reaction, right? So it's supposed to feel it, because it's quite not very nice in taste. And just by seeing the reaction, if child doesn't react, so it means he has a low zinc. Very quick practical tests, right? So then you can start to add few drops in his drink, improving the zinc level. So I had some cases, just by doing that, child start to open up and eat better. But of course, there is lots of sensory issues, right? And we stick to what they like, but on the healthy side. Some of them like the crunchy food, but by injecting multi-formula food into the crunchy chicken drumstick, for example, of course, the home cooked. So we can, bring that sort of a malnourishment to the level when we're changing the cellular appetite. We just need to be patient. We need to hide as much as we can, and that supplements, because they're quite concentrated, can help. And then at some point, child can come to you and say, "Mommy, I want onion." Say, "What? Onion, raw onion." The body start to crave for real food, right? So, but that's again something we need to work. There is lots of malfunction, oral malfunction. They can't chew properly, and it's really torture for them using the apparatus properly. That's why there is lots of some different gadgets, like for example, we're using Meal Munch, it's called. It's Australian company, developed special device, and there is lots of information. I can send you the website, but you can find it. Again, this is like the training machine for the for these muscles here, you put the the everything in place in the right correct, because it comes in a size, and it's really like a chewing machine, but also oxygenating the brain, because you're supposed to close your mouth and breathe through the nose, so oxygen comes to your brain, and little by little you start to chew better and you feel the taste, you start to feel satisfaction. So, but you're right, some children like just a yellow food, or some like just a white food. It's a little step towards then, you mimicking what they like, but with the healthier ingredients. The thing is, these children, they really sort of like a brainwash, they are addicted. So our children got opioids and alcohol inside, remember. So it takes time to get them out of this pattern and clean them little by little. So they are just looking for this particular package, because they know if he's eating pasta from this box, he will feel high. That's what they're looking for. They need feed their candida, they need to feed bad bacteria, and they're looking for these opioids and ethanol.
There, I just want to, because there you touch the point in regards to gluten, morphine peptides, and casomorphine
Yeah,
peptide.
absolutely.
So, but you mentioned kefir at one stage, so I just want to make sure that, like, are you always putting the children on a gluten casein-free diet, or are you sometimes leaving the kefir in, or is it water kefir that you're giving, or?
The casein is for me, the casein, it's a big protein from which comes in entire milk. If the product is fermented, so bacteria cutting the casein in pieces, that's why it's much easier to digest it. It's not a problem anymore. That's why homemade fermented dairy kefir is actually healing product. And
And
I
then
can
obviously
see the
you probably choose A2 milk for using for making the kefir, I guess so.
it's better raw milk if you've got a choice between cow's milk and like a camel milk, but the quality, it needs to be important, right? So you can start with a different type of animal milk, you can do the interchange. The problem is when you say parents, oh, no more dairy products, they're going to almond milk. And this is the problem by itself, right? Because lots of almond milk has mold toxins, and there is some intolerance to all these sort of nut milks as well can be developed. If unless they do it at home for children, which is very, again, another level of hard work. So every case is different, and I see what is available in the area they're living. So if they're living in Dubai and they've got access to good camel milk, that would be the ideal, right? So in Europe, we've got choice between goat milk, sheep milk, cow's milk, and lots of children doing very well on a kefir, even they've got dairy food intolerance. The good homemade products could be problem, and they always can test it. What I suggest, you just make a little paste and just put in here on a thin skin, and let child sleep with it. So if there is some redness on the skin develop, it indicates probably reaction will be inside as well if you give this food. But if it's safe here, so you can start to try introduce it little by little. So it's always about trying little bit and see the reaction, and writing down, because sometimes, as we know, the reaction might kick in a few hours, 24 hours, 72 hours.
Super. So In regards to detox, I mean, and how you prefer to detox and how you detox heavy metals and so on, maybe we should refer to the webinar that we did together with Quicksilver in regards to detoxification, because we actually also asked there if you could use that protocol for children. And his reply was, yes, you just kind of adjust the dosage to the size of the child and obviously the individual child, because just going on weight may not be the right thing for the individual child. If the individual child is highly sensitive, you might have to go like 1/10 of that dosage, but just really start slowly. So so I just wanted to put some emphasis on the nutrition and the diet, and the gluten and casein, because that question came up a lot. And also at Nordic, we have the peptide test where you can measure for caso and gluten peptides or morphine types. So that's also something you can measure in order to evaluate if you want to go 100% gluten casein free, or if you want to do it 75 or with the fermented dairy, etc. So I appreciate your time, and I appreciate for all those that stayed on for this question and answer section, and also for hanging in there. And I remember when I was at all these, like, it was Defeat Autism Now conferences, and I was working closely together with Liz Mumba as well. And like, I was traveling in Norway with a group of parents there where they were doing lots of education events there. And if you dive into treating children with autism, you really dive deep into functional medicine. You need to have so many aspects included in the consideration with the child, and having that interest or passion to help these children will really help you along the way in understanding functional medicine. So it kind of goes hand in hand. And clearly you've managed to get those two things together. And I hope to be more in contact with you and reach out if anyone needs to learn from Irina, and reach out to Nordic if you wish to. I just want to say, I think it was on this, let me just double check the date. On the 22nd of May, we are inviting to a webinar called Strand by Strand, and that's evaluating toxins and essential elements in hair testing. So at the moment, it's kind of the one webinar is digging into the next.
Digging to another one, yeah.
Exactly. So it's so nice. There's such a rich thread in the webinar now that we are holding at the moment. So all of you out there, have a lovely evening, rest of the day. Irina, thank you very much for your time, and
thank you.
Share all your knowledge and your passion with us.
Well, all knowledge impossible to share. I just some kind of illustration that we can do a lot. Doesn't matter what your background in a functional approach, we can do a lot. There is so much to be done, ladies and gentlemen, to stop that statistics growing.
Absolutely. Let's do something out there to get that statistics better, for sure. Take care, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.